20+% was like the shot heard around the world, and so we'll talk to the guy who fired the gun. Robert Healey creates fascination. We've got some good conversation coming up with him. He is the former cool moose who took the moderate party mantle and rode it all the way to 21% in the governor's race, which I still think is defined as a disruption, a significant disruption. Yesterday on the radio on WPRO, where you can hear me noon to 3, and of course my listeners, callers, I got an earful about calling it a disruption, and I got an earful about the legitimacy of the Healey campaign, and we got into some very deep conversation about what Bob Healey had brought to the table and what he might bring to the table in the future, and what the followers of Bob Healey can expect. So I will have a short rundown here this evening because I think his effort in this campaign certainly warrants some quality time on my state of mind. Greetings, I am Dan York. You know who you are. It's Friday. It's been a long election week, and we wrap it up with a very interesting guy. In the meantime, a couple of thoughts anyway. Yes, that is the message from the Speaker of the House to the President, or at least a reference to it. It is that time when the new person coming in takes notes from the person who is still in, and it was kind of interesting at our own State House yesterday, and a lot of hullabaloo about nothing, it seems. And of course, I want to hear what you have to think in the multiple ways that you can contact us on your state of mind. All right, so issue number 1 here, if we can. Thank you, Rox. Playing with matches. This was interesting. The headline out of the FoxNews.com, we just kind of randomly choose the headlines. Boehner warns Obama will burn himself with executive action on immigration. Now look, the Republicans who have now stormed Washington and taken over control of the Senate and the House have promised that Obamacare is their main target. Now, this is the legacy legislation that the president has offered us, and he's not going to let go of it very lightly, right? He's also going to act on his own, he says, with executive orders on immigration, and he got a little mouthful from the Speaker of the House yesterday.
I believe that the president continues to act on his own. He is going to poison the well. When you play with matches, you take the risk of burning yourself. And he's going to burn himself if he continues to go down this path. The American people made it clear Election Day. They want to get things done, and they don't want the president acting on a unilateral basis.
You know, that very well may be true. That very well may be true. But that is as condescending as it comes. John Boehner suggesting that the president shouldn't burn himself playing with matches. That's what your mother told you when you first grabbed a book of matches, that you would hurt yourself with them. You've got to admit that the tone is not good. Boehner's diplomacy, now that he's got the power, may not be so smart. And I don't think they're going to get anything done. And it's going to be a lot of this, he won't let us, we don't have veto power yet. We've got control, but we don't have veto power, so we can write every bill we want, and he can veto every bill he wants. He can act on his own with executive orders, and there's nothing we can do. So you're going to have to give us a Republican in the Oval Office. That will be the 2016 argument, which will start in about 5 minutes. The Democrats, in the meantime, will say, hey, they had control of Congress, and they didn't get anything done. So you got to put Hillary in there. Kind of can write the script, right? Next item. Transition time. Yep, it's kind of a unique time. Christmas time, Easter time. Rox thought that was fun. Transition time. There's a headline. Yes, there's Gina, and there's Link, and she's excited, and he's kind of dumbfounded. He's going to have to leave soon. They'll give him directions on how to walk out of the State House. The press, in a gaggle, as we like to call it, showed up because they heard these two were getting together to share some notes. Here's a little snippet of Susan's report.
The governor and governor-elect all smiles, sitting down together at the State House.
I only have 2 months, and it's a lot to do in 2 months, so I wanted to get in here right away and figure out how to make the transition smooth.
To help with that transition, Governor Chafee said he would go over a wide range of issues with Raimondo that she'll face when she takes over.
Everything from the Central Coventry Fire District and how we can get that resolved to bigger issues, budgets, and any advice on directors.
He don't know what he's doing. The Central Coventry Fire District, really? You're going to brief Gina Raimondo on the Central Coventry Fire District link? Really? Really? Heck, he didn't even bring like coffee, like a box of Joe and a jelly donut or something for her. Not that she looks like she eats any. I don't know, man. He's just kind of checked out. Old Gina's just kind of going, yeah, it's kind of perfunctory. I got to come over here and take some notes. And 45 minutes, she probably walked out going, do we have to do that again? The truth is, she probably will. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times. That is her penance for winning. Now, to the city of Providence. And voila, the state police say, Now, you remember the first headlines, right? The Providence Journal, front page, ballot collections at shelter under scrutiny. You remember the story. There were 2 men, maybe they were Providence police officers, turns out they were, who were working on behalf of Buddy Cianci. Turns out he didn't know. Couldn't tell you who they were. Who were collecting mail ballots. The idea of collecting mail ballots is something that we need to correct. Maybe Nellie will do that. Nellie's coming to see us on Friday of next week. You know, our Nellie, the Secretary of State, Nellie Gorbea. Maybe she'll focus on revisiting how we collect mail ballots. Anyway, that's what was going on there, and that's where the fraud is ripe. And that's where one gentleman said, you know what, this guy was muscling me a little bit too much, and so he called the Journal, not the cops, the Journal. Journal came over, and then the director of the shelter called the cops, I think the state police, not the local police. And then they had this investigation, and there was a lot of back and forth between Jorge Olorza, by the way, he's the new mayor, and Buddy about who's cheating and this and that and the other thing. And then today, this headline comes out from yesterday's finding. Police end probe into alleged ballot tampering. They find that there's no legitimate evidence to charge these 2 guys, which is fine, and that's what I figured would happen. But the story is on page A2. The allegations are on the front page. Alorza was sure that these guys were involved in this kind of stuff. I wonder if he's going to make a statement saying, oh, I'm glad Buddy wasn't cheating. Of course, Buddy kept saying, I don't know who these guys are. Didn't help himself. I wonder if he'll say now, yeah, I knew who those 2 guys were. Now that I know they didn't get busted. Is there any legitimate conversation during an election time? Ever? I mean, the allegations are all flying at fever pitch and front page coverage before the election, and afterwards it's kind of like, oh yeah, by the way. And finally, tonight, your state of mind, by the way. This is how you get in touch with the broadcast. 228-1886 is the voicemail. State of mind at MyRightTV.com is the email. And of course, you can tweet and Facebook post and all that kind of stuff. This was kind of interesting. Just thought this was a good one to put up, and why not? So somebody, Angus Davis, you know, that entrepreneur of great success in Providence, is talking to Ted, I guess, and talking about me and suggesting that Tim White, fairly famous guy, and Kathy Projo, who's Kathy Gregg, the State House reporter at the Journal, that we all ought to do our own version of Meet the Press. Hey, listen, I'll talk shop with anybody. They can come here anytime and do. How many seats we got around this table? Not enough. Not enough.
Gotta vote someone off the island.
So if that idea flies, we need a new set. In the meantime, I'm just happy the way it's going right now. And I don't think Kathy Gregg does broadcast, because the Journal still lives in the 1950s, where they think they were the purveyors of all. That is the fifth estate. I think I'll shut up now, because I'm going to get in trouble. Interesting idea. I think Healey's more interesting, and he's next. Yes, sirree. Here was the headline on Wednesday after Election Day. First female governor, Raimondo defeats Fung and Healey. And it's kind of interesting. I looked at that headline and I thought, well, check that out. Really, legitimately, and how could you not say so, based on the way the numbers in the election came out, Healey gets as much billing in this dynamic for the governor's race as the two who were running for what seemed like forever. And I wonder how that looked to you when you saw that headline. By the way, welcome and congratulations on what was, I think, to many, a surprisingly significant electoral performance on Tuesday.
Well, thank you. I thought it was significant.
Yeah, it was. But did you look at the headline at all? Kind of go, wow, I was right in the middle of that thing, man.
Yeah, I mean, what? Healey defeats Fung? Is that where you're going with this?
No. I was, you're looking for trouble right
Yes,
away?
yes.
All right. Well, no.
I came ready.
No, I just think that the three names
I know what you're saying.
being reflected
It
in
was-
the race
it was
fairly equitably
Yeah.
is a
good sign.
positive sign
Right.
on what you did.
Well, I actually,
I mean, you're like a callers to my radio show. You say all they wanted to do was to misconstrue what I was saying about your candidacy. Now you're starting. Get the hell out of here. It's been a
Wait,
long
wait.
week.
what I was trying to, I mean, it's interesting actually the point you're making, because prior to the election, it was always the first two on the front page. It was always Gina and Alan,
Right.
and E6 or A6 or whatever. It was
Right.
Bob Healey's picture. Now it's equity. Yes, I
Right.
agree.
You had to. I mean, you were invited into the debates. Your first one was difficult because you really didn't know how to get out of the way of the rules and get your message out. But I think in the next two televised debates, you did pretty well, and you found your
agree.
stride.
I agree.
And the momentum was palpable
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah, it was designed that way as strategy, because the last.
What do you mean? Tell me.
Well, we knew that because in the lieutenant governor's campaign, we thought we were doing pretty much equally, and that was about 2 weeks out of the election, and it afforded them the opportunity to run $500,000 worth of negative ads against us, and we weren't going to respond because we don't have any cash to respond. So this time we planned our biggest push to be the last 4 days, so that they'd have Saturday, Sunday, not going to be able to air on election day. So it was.
Well, I don't understand. What push did you think you controlled?
Well, I think we had an internet presence that we could, push a little harder on and send out bigger messages on that last week.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, I do. I think it worked.
Okay, well that's new to me. I didn't really consider that part of it. I thought you just had a lot of equity, a lot of recognition.
We had that.
And you did pretty damn well in the debates, and you had a different message, and the other two candidates more or less fell short of the kind of Pied Piper leadership that comes along with a mandate, and I thought that's why you did so well.
From a strategy perspective, that was the prelude, certainly. I mean, that was the purpose of the campaign, and that we lived up to the purpose. And then we had already been at that. And what we were facing was all pretty much the Fung people saying a wasted vote, a wasted vote, a wasted vote, which is fear in the two-party system. It's traditional strategy on their part. I really don't blame them for doing that. I mean, I think that it certainly took away from our showing. We probably could have done a little bit better had we had the people that were, if you look at the Republican towns in the results, all the Republicans pretty much went home to party. So that scare tactic worked for a lot of them.
Maybe.
Oh, I don't think we would have won.
Well, look,
that.
listen, Alan Fung has a conceptual problem in this whole race. 36% is about where he'd settle in, it seems to me.
Yeah, they come to it with that. I mean, in the Master Lever.
They come to that. They come to it, and they don't generally get much more than that, unless you have an extraordinary candidacy. And all due respect to Alan, who's a fine gentleman, I've always considered him a B player and not somebody who was going to break this thing wide open on his own with you or without you around. And frankly, when you look at the numbers, I don't think that you pulled a lot from Alan Fung. I mean,
I don't think they pulled many at all.
Your discussion of workers' rights and pension ripoff, my words, but how you were talking about it in the debates, I think gave those dissident Democrats who are upset about pension reform a place to go.
Right.
I think that's where a lot of your
I think
support came from.
Probably half of the support came from that group. I think the other half of that support came from people who were inspired by the campaign.
So, the inspiration, it's so funny, man. People are inspired and they see and they read things on their own through their own prism, no matter who you are
Right.
or I am or
Subjective,
whatever.
objective.
But the radio show yesterday was phenomenal because people were trying to describe what it was that you brought to the table and what your vision was and what the purposefulness of this election for you was. And so, in short, if you can,
In your
in
own
30
words.
seconds with a 10-second rebuttal, the kind of stuff that you hate.
Yeah,
What was it?
It was a campaign that was designed to show that you could operate a campaign. And you've known my past campaigns. It's always been no money campaigns or limited fund campaigns. And we figured that this time out, why not shoot for the whole works? We'll go with as little of the funding as possible.
But you stood for what? Not just no money in a campaign.
Well,
you
no,
stood for
money,
what?
money in the campaign. Our message was inspirational. Their message was, he's bad, I'm good, I'm good, he's, that kind of playbook message. They were scripted, they took a side of the
No
issue.
doubt.
What we were trying to show is that you can send a message that you can solve problems by breaking down the party system. One side represents this issue, the other side represents the other side of the issue, and it's great because you can raise money to keep the issue alive and fighting. It's like lawyers in court where you're just calculating billable hours. It's you're getting contributions to keep the fight alive
So let me see
instead
if I
of solving
understand this.
problems.
So the very intrinsic discussion of third-party competition, in essence, was the message that third party matters without having to have a signature on what Bob Healey stands for or what he would do day one in office.
That's part of it, and the message continued on with giving people a lot of freedom within the campaign to write their own message, what they felt about it. I mean, people were coming up to me the day after the election, and they were saying, we lost, but I'm glad I voted for you. I really feel I became part of the system. Because with special interest groups and special interest money, it's beyond the people. They just don't, they don't have the role in government anymore. And you ask, why are they disengaged? Well, they're disengaged because you're disengaging them. The only time you ask for anything, I mean, they criticize me for coming out every 4 years. That's all they're doing, except that they have special interest money that can advertise as.
That's where the debate with Bob will continue with me, because I don't think that's all they're doing. Stay with us.
The one good thing about today was at the end of it all, throughout the day today, I mean, there was nothing more of a pleasing feeling that people came up and said, I really felt that I had to vote for you. But most people said, oh, you were great on all the debates. The problem is that, we can't waste a vote or this or that. And everybody has a reason.
I'm not so sure that's true. I think that this time around, lightning in a bottle was caught in such a way that you had a lot of purposeful followers for whatever their perspective was on your candidacy.
I agree.
Because you would have stopped at 10 or 12% if there wasn't that kind. Now, were there people who did make a calculation? Sure, but I don't think it was as prevalent as this time around. I don't think it was as prevalent this time around as it has been in the past, or could
not
be.
sure on that one.
All right, well, that's a whole
We'll
other
have to let that
conversation.
pass.
But it's, I mean, I could talk about this stuff all night, and sometimes we've done that. But the question is, where do you go from here, right? And you were suggesting that you're just like the other two candidates prior to the break. You said, they're just raising more money. Now, they build organizations.
Right.
They build capital entities, no doubt, in order to be able to make this thing work. If you don't get a call from the moderate party saying, hey, Bob, can you help us out and represent us? You are out of this game. You were out of this game. Yeah. So you're not like those two.
No.
You did not put the work in that those two did.
Well, I've done that in the past. So.
Understood, and I think that equity built a lot of what represented in the vote this time around.
I mean, I can easily get 1,000 signatures to get on the ballot. I mean, I don't think that's an effort at all.
No, I get that. But you know what, by the way, this $36 thing, it's cute, but what about the gas money?
I brought the receipts for you.
What about the gas money?
I have to go places. I put gas in my car all the time.
Yeah, but point, come on, you drove around a little bit.
I
bet you I could get you up to $500 in this campaign.
Yeah. Those are the receipts from October.
These are
and November.
coupons. You're like my wife.
I ate food. I ate food. You want to? Okay, that's part of a campaign.
That's the whole. That's the whole campaign right there.
That's
all my bills.
$36
worth of receipts.
All my bills from.
All I'm suggesting is that there's signage and other stuff that went into the campaign. But you did say at the beginning that people can help you.
Right.
It's just that you weren't going to put the money.
The signage. I mean, the signage. There was certainly a lot of signage there, but we put on our website that you could print your own signs using this, program or whatever.
You got to get a computer or a file folder or something for those things.
I should do that. But the thing is that we had old signs. I mean, we just crossed out the word lieutenant, and we used all the old lieutenant governor signs. People were selling signs at cost that they were making.
Here's the ultimate question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where do you go from here?
It's interesting.
You have a responsibility now, sort of, if you want it and take it on.
That's exactly what I'm contemplating over the next few days, where I'm going to go. I mean, we've gotten contacts from people that said, can we bring this kind of concept about campaign finance reform nationally? We've gotten some odd requests that I somehow think of a presidential campaign, which is ridiculous. So, you know, we've gotten different messages from different people along those lines. I'm a Rhode Islander. I care about the state, and I always did. And my campaigns,
And I
always
think
thought
you do.
reflect
But here's the danger I think that you run, and we don't have a lot of time, so you got to come back, and then we'll do the radio next week. That scene in Gump when he just stops running.
I don't.
You haven't seen the movie?
I haven't seen it.
When he stops running, and people are waiting for this big, profound answer, and they're like, "What do we do now?" And they're waiting for him to say something, and he just says, "Well, I guess I'm paraphrasing. Just tired, don't feel like running." And they're like, "We thought this was deep." I think you have a chance to do that to people by just saying, "Look, I'm done now," and they'll be like, "What?"
Well, it really depends on the people that are involved in the campaign. I mean, if they want to continue, I certainly will serve as in any advisory capacity to candidates.
For what? To moderate party? To build a moderate party? What?
Any third-party movements. I really believe in third-party and independent candidates. I think we've changed the way Rhode Island politics has to be. I think you have to start looking at alternative voting systems because of that. We're a three-party state now. It's no longer a two-party state. And if you look at the plurality, majority voting, you certainly have to revise that. I mean, I advocated that in '94.
Right, come on the radio next week.
Yeah,
I'll
we'll
let everybody
talk
know.
forever.
We'll talk forever, but you know what? It certainly was
Yeah,
fascinating.
it always is.
Good to see you, man.
Same here.
All right, final thought. You know, the fascinating thing about Bob Healey is that I can't figure out whether he's going to lead a charge or whether he's going to follow a charge. And the honest thing he said was that he didn't really know either. So before you folks get all fired up that you're going to the promised land with a guy who got 21% in a statewide vote, let him figure it out first. All right, we'll see you on Monday. We got a special show on Monday about those of you who have a backache, and you have a great weekend. Get out of here. No, you scram. I love you. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it.